Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Virginia Tech, they're starting to look really dangerous. And quite frankly, they're starting to look like the team that we all expected them to look like heading into 2024, right? A frustrating early part of the 2024 season. You can see that this team is clearly kind of turning the corner in 2024. And I think you kind of felt it against Miami, where they gave a top 10 team everything they could handle on Friday night. They turn around and beat Stanford really bad. Now you take care of Boston College. And not only are you winning football games now, but I think more importantly, you watch this football game and say, this is how we expected Virginia Tech to look heading into 2024. This is the recipe of how Virginia Tech can win a lot of football games in the ACC. This team's dangerous. And we kind of knew they were dangerous, even though they weren't playing to their potential to start 2024. Want to get into what we saw from Virginia Tech against Boston College. They dominated this football game. And quite frankly, you look at the score and say, they won by 21 points, covered the spread. I think the score could have been much more lopsided if it wasn't for a 5 minute, I don't know what you call it, just losing your mind if for 5 minutes in the third quarter. But outside of that, like wall to wall, this game was dominated by Virginia Tech. Really excited to kind of get into some of my takeaways. Before we do, and as always, to the Virginia Tech fans, one shout out if any Virginia Tech fans are listening to this and we're at that football game. I continue to say this, and you talk about special environments in college football Thursday night in Blacksburg. It doesn't get any better. I always have a blast watching those football games on TV. It's on my bucket list to get down there for one of those football games. Environment was awesome. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, you got to get into some takeaways, and it starts with this rushing attack. This was a rushing attack that we thought would be one of the best in the country heading into 2024. We are starting to see that rushing attack really get going. And it starts with running back Bhayshul Tuten broke the Virginia Tech record in terms of rushing yards in a football game, I believe they said. 18 carries, 266 yards on the ground, averaging 15 yards per carry. Also caught a touchdown coming out of the backfield. This kid is special, and he's special for so many different reasons, but I think it starts with his feel at the running back position. I mean, the vision, the instincts, the ability to make people miss at the second level. It's all next level. He's emerging as one of the best running backs that we see not only in this conference but in this country. But I think the biggest takeaway I had from Virginia Tech on offense is, look, we know that this offense is going to be predicated on the run game. If you're going to run the football as much as Virginia Tech wants to run it, you got to be diverse in terms of how you run the football. Look, I'm a Michigan fan. We have to run the football a lot. The difference between Virginia Tech and Michigan is Michigan kind of runs the same rushing concepts. There's not much flavor. There's not much creativity in terms of how they want to run the football. You look at Virginia Tech and say, yeah, we're running the football a lot. It's not necessarily a surprise to opposing defenses that Virginia Tech is running the football, but they run it so many different ways that it's really hard to stop. I mean, you take a look at some of the concepts we saw. It starts with some of those outside zone concepts that Bhayshul Tuten is so good at stretching it out and kind of knowing when to put his foot in the ground and get upfield. The outside zone's the bread and butter. I think we all know that, but you saw some gap. You saw some inside. You saw some pin and pull. You saw some jet sweeps. You saw a ton of pre-snap motion. You saw some design quarterback runs. They probably ran the football with 12 to 15 different concepts in that football game. So, yeah, you're running the football, but it looks different every time. And you could tell Boston College just wasn't really sure what was hitting them every single play. And so the creativity of the run game, it's just different. Now, we gave a lot of credit to Bhayshul Tuten. You got to give a ton of credit to this Virginia Tech offensive line, not only because I think the offensive line is really good from a personnel standpoint, and you can tell a lot of these guys have developed under Coach Brent Pry and in this program, but I think more importantly, the chemistry of this unit, like the combo blocks, the timing in terms of, hey, when am I getting to the second level and picking up the linebacker? It was, for lack of better terms, a well-oiled machine up front. And so this was a clinic in terms of how you want to run the football. Obviously, you guys can see 371 rushing yards. When you can run the football for almost 400 yards in a football game, chances are you're going to win. And I think it's wild because you look at some of the other stats in this game and say, all right, Virginia Tech lost the turnover battle, wasn't particularly good on third downs, But when you run the football like that, it don't really matter because you can win a lot of football games. And I think the second thing is they're marrying the pass game with the run game. And so, yeah, we're going to run the football a lot, but we're going to work the pass game off the run game. We're going to use a lot of play action. We're going to get Kyron Jones outside of the pocket. I don't think Jones was anything special on Thursday night. He threw one pass that I think made everybody scratch their head. But you can tell they're designing this offense to keep Drones in situations where he's at his best, being an athlete, getting outside the pocket. That was, in my opinion, just a brilliant performance for Virginia Tech on offense. That's an offense that when you have the ability to run in so many different ways and you have so many different playmakers that you can get involved in. Yeah, it starts with Bhayshul Tuten, but obviously Kyron Jones can make it happen. You have multiple wide receivers that can make it happen in space on the outside. A lot of different ways that this Virginia Tech team can attack opposing defenses. So although it's pretty predictable that Virginia Tech's going to want to run the football a lot, it looks different every single time. And that makes it really hard for an opposing defense. Now you flip to the defensive side of the football, the pass rush. And we kind of said it. You look at Virginia Tech rushing the passer. There ain't many programs in the country that can get after the quarterback better. And it starts with Antoine Powell-Ryland, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. The impact that that kid had on a football game was it was some next level stuff. And we kind of know, look at all the elite defenses that you see from across the country and from the last decade. They always seem to have an alpha, a guy that just makes things happen coming off the edge. Virginia Tech has one of the best edge rushers that we see in the country. You look at Antoine Powell-Ryland and say this was kind of a tricky game for an edge rusher because you want to get after the passer, but you're also dealing with a quarterback in Thomas Castellanos that can make it happen outside of the pocket. I thought Virginia Tech on aggregate was really, really good at, hey, we're going to get a lot of heat on Thomas Castellanos, but we're not going to let him get outside the pocket and kill us with his legs consistently. And Antoine Powell-Ryland, so many different ways that he can get after the passer. But I think most importantly, the motor on this kid is special. And for a guy like Thomas Castellanos who wants to kind of run around the pocket, scramble around, hold on to the football, you need your defensive linemen to play with motors. And not only is Antoine Powell-Ryland one of the most talented edge rushers that we see in the country, this kid plays hard every single time he's on the football field. That mattered in that football game. There were the 4 sacks, 4 TFLs. Yeah, some of them came from just I'm better than my opponent. But I think a lot of those came from I'm going to play harder than my opponent too and continue to pursue the quarterback and to not give up on the play and play to the whistle. That stuff matters as well. I always think about Aiden Hutchinson back when he was racking up the sacks in Michigan. Yeah, he was a really good edge rusher that won number 2 in the NFL draft. But he was also a player that just played so hard and ran into so many sacks because he never stopped playing. I thought Powell-Ryland was kind of like that on Thursday night. We were all excited about Kelly Lawson at the linebacker spot in terms of is this the year that he puts it together? The crazy part for Virginia Tech is they're trotting out some other guys like Keller and Woodson who very similar body types, like kind of longer, not necessarily super, super big, but very fast and can come down and fly around the football field. I thought Keller and Woodson were really, really good. And you saw some missed tackles, but these linebackers fire downhill. They play extremely fast. You saw some defensive backs like Keontae Jenkins getting involved in the run game as well. This was, I don't think it was perfect from Virginia Tech's defense. And I think a lot of the points that Boston College was able to score came off the backs of Virginia Tech turning the football over in their own territory. Thought the defense was probably better than 21 points and 383 total yards on the night. I think this was outside of like outside of 5 minutes in that third quarter where Jerome throws a pick and then Tootin fumbles and I think almost back-to-back plays for Virginia Tech on offense. This was a Virginia Tech team that dominated this football game against the Boston College team that was 4-2 heading in and a team that's a quality football team in the ACC. Now, the ACC picture is kind of muddy in terms of you look at who has chances to make the ACC championship game. I would certainly identify Virginia Tech as one of those teams where they only got one loss in conference. This is a team that can win every single game they play if they can play like that and avoid that 5-minute spell in the third quarter. I think a lot of Virginia Tech fans, at the very least, this team's playing like we expected them to play. And I don't know if they make an ACC championship game, but at the very least, you're starting to see this team play to their potential. And if they do that, this is one of the better teams in the ACC. And I think we're starting to see them become that team in the back half of the season. Really, really excited for this team. And it was awesome to finally see this team really put it all together on Thursday night. We'll cut it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.